Hi y'all, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the Ravenclaw Queen. I'm filming in a different area. I'm just testing out my new tripod just to see like what I like and don't like. Sorry, my hair is a mess. I'm getting my hair done next Monday, so I have some time, but I'll probably wash it again before then just to like make it look somewhat more decent. I've been wearing headbands like forever, but this Maniac Monday video is going to be different from the other videos. I'm also going to try to keep this under 20 minutes because I'm not actually telling my story anymore. I'm entering into just more candid talks about mental health and my experiences in more detail. So I'm going to go back to some of the things I've mentioned and try to like explain better how I experienced them, just in case you guys want to know more or like if you have questions about my experiences. So I'm just gonna give a quick recap of what I've talked about so far. So like I said, I have anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. I have not experienced depression symptoms, I would say, since I left the hospital the last time. So I would say I haven't been depressed since November of 2022. Like I've been pretty much just dealing with bipolar disorder and anxiety, which I've kind of always dealt with anxiety. So really knowing that I have bipolar disorder has helped me. And like I talked about before, knowing your diagnoses is much better than just taking any medicine that you think is going to help. Like if you know exactly what it is, then you're more likely to be able to treat it. So yes, so anxiety and bipolar disorder are what I'm dealing with the most. And then I have spent time in 3 different behavioral hospitals, like I mentioned. So I was in Davidson, Kings Mountain. I didn't say the last hospital I was in because I think it's more fresh. And from what I shared about the sexual assault incident, I don't know whatever happened with that case. And I guess I can go ahead and update you guys on that too. So after that happened and I left the hospital, I did return to the hospital. I talked to someone on the phone. I did a report about what was said to me about the whole, like, has anyone ever hit your G-spot thing? I did a report on that. I reported their name, all of that. So I don't know if that person still works there, but like, I don't want any type of like drama, I guess, out of it. So I'm not going to say the hospital I was at. I'll just say that it wasn't Davidson or Kings Mountain. It was in South Carolina. So yeah. Now the 2 visits that I had, one in Davidson and Kings Mountain, those were for suicidal ideation and suicidal attempts, or like none of it was successful, obviously, but like and I didn't actually really harm myself to the point where it like had a lifelong effect on me. So it wasn't as like bad as it could have been. But yeah, so those were for suicidal ideation attempt. And then when I was in the hospital the last time, it was for a manic episode. And it was because I was acting out very like violently. So it appeared that I could be harmful to others and even myself. So that's why they wanted to keep me in the hospital. The 2 visits I had to Davidson and Kings Mountain, I was in there. I think Davidson was just like 3 to 4 days. And then I was in Kings Mountain for a week almost. And then I was in the hospital in South Carolina for, I think, exactly 30 days. So from September 26th until like October 26th, like I might have got out October 28th. So it was like a little over 30 days, but yeah. So that's like the recap. I didn't start feeling really like these symptoms of depression and bipolar disorder early in my life at all. Like I think I've always had anxiety, but I've just never like called it anxiety. I didn't start being depressed until after I dropped out of law school in September of 2020. So the depression, I've always been a very like happy person for the most part, other than when I was like bullied as a kid. But other than that, like I don't know if I mentioned, but like in middle school, I did have like suicidal thoughts before, but it was never to the point of like what I had dealt with after law school. So yeah. But the anxiety, like I said, I've always had. The bipolar, I didn't find out I had until September of 2022 when they diagnosed me with it. So yeah, like I probably had already been experiencing symptoms, but I wasn't like showing or like understanding that that's what it was at that time. And I didn't know like what the triggers were. So that's something I might talk about in a different video, because this video I wanted to focus on something else. But there are triggers to manic episodes that you can probably catch if you understand what your triggers are. And the triggers are different for everyone. So I mean, you really have to just know yourself, and that's why therapy helps as well. And like talking to an actual professional can help you understand how to like cope when things are getting like bad. So in this video though, I wanted to go more in depth with my experience on like how I felt about being in those behavioral hospitals. So starting with Davidson, I went there in June of 2021. This was after I kind of had a crisis with Teach for America, and I felt like I couldn't do Teach for America anymore. Like it wasn't gonna serve me, and I wasn't gonna actually be a good teacher to the students. So I kind of had like a big meltdown, and then I ended up in Davidson. I will say Davidson was probably the cleanest between Kings Mountain and Davidson. Davidson was definitely a nicer facility. I feel like the food was better. And I'm not saying all this to say like I would want you to go there, but I'm just saying like this is just how I experienced it. I think the group topics that we had in Davidson were much better. Like they had this woman come, I remember, she was like a military veteran, but she also dealt with like PTSD from the military. I think she was in the Air Force. It was this nice black woman. I feel like they also had a lot of black staff. Kings Mountain was very much more like white people, if I remember correctly. They had black people in there, but it wasn't like the people I was dealing with mainly were white, like the psych techs and stuff like that. But yeah, they had this woman come. She did this like workshop where she would like have us we would smell lotions and stuff like that, and it was kind of like aromatherapy. And that was the first time I had ever like done that. Like I knew about aromatherapy because my mom is into like essential oils and stuff like that, like lavender. But this is the first time I like had done a little like workshop with it. So that was really cool. Like she put thought into it, you know. And then they had other people come, and they would like actually like speak to us, try to encourage us and make us do like arts and crafts to like help, because I don't know if you guys know, but doing like painting or drawing, anything artistic, even if you're not like considered good at it, it really helps your brain. Or even doing like crossword puzzles or like word searches, like stuff like that, Sudoku, those are good things to like focus your mind on one thing. Because when you're focusing on like, if you have issues with like racing thoughts, if you're focused on just one, sorry, I'm talking with my hands right now, I don't know why I'm doing this, but if you focus on one thing, like, okay, what is the next word in this puzzle, or like where is this word in this word search, or like what is the next number in the Sudoku word, or even if you're doing an actual puzzle, where does this piece go? Like your brain, the mind is just insane. Your brain is gonna stop like those thoughts that you're having, those like racing like anxious thoughts that you're having. It's gonna stop because your brain is now focused on one thing. And I think Davidson was a great facility because they really pushed like the groups and like having us participate and stuff. I remember not wanting to participate, but I did eventually. And I want to talk about this as well. Like when you're in these facilities, they measure how you're doing based on if you're participating in groups, if you're coming to eat lunch or dinner or whatever, breakfast, if you're coming to eat at the same time as everyone else, like if you're talking to people, like they want to see like you are actually interacting. Because whether or not you want to agree with this, your social anxiety or depression or bipolar disorder can be better or healed more if you're social with others. A lot of my depression that I had in law school was because I isolated myself and I felt like I didn't have anyone. So they kind of measure how you're doing based off if you're talking to people, if you're making friends, like they're looking at that. If you're not eating your food, if you're not sleeping, like they're looking at all of that. So going to groups though was a really big part, because groups could help show that you're actually understanding the information and you're taking in the information. And if you're talking, it's like, okay, like they actually have, you know, thoughts on this. Because like I said in another video, I felt like the nurses that I had met in one of the hospitals I went to didn't believe that I had been in college or had been in law school. Like, it was kind of like I don't know, it felt weird because I remember talking about it or telling one of them, and then, like I said, I was asleep one day or pretending to be asleep because I didn't want to talk anymore. And I heard one of the nurses like question like if I had done any of that, basically. Which, when I went to the hospital that I went to the last time in South Carolina, I remember my doctor telling me, he was like, it was the last day that I was about to like leave there. He was like, Alexis, you are so unique. Like, because my mom had been talking to him too. So everything that I had been saying had been, you know, verified by my parents. So it wasn't like they didn't believe that I was smart or anything. They just didn't understand how someone like me could end up in a place like that. And it's not to say that people that go to the psych ward are not, you know, intelligent people. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But they didn't understand how someone who came from a 2-parent household, someone who is like upper middle class, someone who went to college, went to law school or got into law school, like someone who had, you know, on paper looked like a very stable person, how they could end up in a place where your mental health is unstable. And I mean, the simple answer I would say to those doctors, to those psychiatrists, is just because you're perfect on paper, perfect, quote unquote, that doesn't mean you don't have like secrets, like you don't have things that you haven't talked about with your parents, like I mentioned, the sexual assault, the abortion, like, which my mom knew about the abortion, but I'm just saying, like, there's things that hadn't really been explored in my life at that point. And even just like the consequences of people bullying me as a kid, like, I internalized that. And like, one of my biggest fears was ever thinking that like I was ugly or fat. Like, those things I internalized because I used to get picked on for being like ugly and chubby. So like, as you grow up, you start to feel like an outsider because of certain things like that. And like, going back to being isolated, when you feel isolated, it's really hard to connect with other people. And if you can't connect with other people, you're gonna feel anxious more. And if you're anxious more, then you might feel like, well, why am I even doing any of this? Why is this like worth it? Like, I'm worthless. Like, then you lead into depression, and depression can, you know, lead into bipolar, manic, all that. So I would say one of the biggest challenges of being in a place like a psych ward is people looking at you and not understanding you and judging you. Another thing that I want to touch on is hygiene. So they definitely measure your success in the facility by your hygiene. So if you're taking your showers in the morning and at night or whatever, using deodorant, all that. I will say, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I'm one of those people that when I'm depressed, like when I really was depressed, like really bad, it was hard for me to get up and take a shower. And I'm not ashamed to admit that, because I know that a lot of people have that issue. And so being in the facility is kind of hard because, for one, the showers are not built for all types of people. Like, I remember Kings Mountain specifically, their shower head would like, I don't know, it like directly was kind of almost directly over your head. So like, if I want to take a shower, my hair would have to get wet. And I used to hate that because like, I don't like my hair to just be wet every day. Even in the facility in South Carolina, like, I remember the water, it would kind of like go to I think you could adjust that head though, but I remember I would get picked on because I showered with like really hot water, which I don't know why that was something that the psych techs thought were funny, but some of them would always point out like how much steam was coming from my room because of my shower, because the bathrooms are really small, so like all the steam kind of goes out, because I think they made us shower with our doors open for like, you know, safety things. So the water would come, I mean the steam would come out of the bathroom, and I don't know, it was just like, they always would pick on me about the steam, and I'm like, y'all should be happy that I'm showering at all. But anyway, but yeah, so hygiene was another thing that we had to make sure we paid attention to while we were in the different hospitals. Also being very honest with the psychiatrist or the therapist that we talk to, because if you told them like, oh, I went to group today or whatever, like just an example, and then they find out that you didn't go to group, then they're gonna be like, well, why is she lying? Like, they're gonna try to keep you there longer because you're not being honest with them. So definitely being honest about like what you're doing while you're there, and also being honest about why you ended up there. Because I felt like when I was in Davidson specifically, I felt like the psychiatrists there were trying to trip me up and make me like change my story about things, and I'm like, no, this is what happened. But it just kept like getting annoying, because another thing about these facilities is you're gonna have to talk to more than one person, and you're gonna have to tell your story more than one time. So it gets very annoying, especially like when you're already like not happy to be there, and you don't have your phone. Like, a lot of people use their phone as an escape, which I definitely use social media as an escape sometimes. I feel like I still do. Like, I'll go scroll on TikTok, or I'll get on Twitter and like argue with people because I'm just like bored. Which I deleted my Twitter today because I'm just sick of like ignorance. Well, I deleted the app. I didn't delete my account, but like, I'm just tired of people. This is a sidebar, but I'm tired of people like going on there, starting random meaningless debates about things that really have no benefit to our lives. Like, this man got on there complaining about how a man has to take women on dates and pay for dates and communicate and like chase her, basically. Do you not like women? Like, if you like the woman, why is that a problem? Why would you not want to go on dates with her? Like, you pay, if you have money, why is that, like, why is it so hard? Anyway, but that was the last straw. I'm just tired of these relationship debates. I'm tired of people having podcasts that have no type of intelligence to be running a podcast, or any degree or research behind what they're talking about. Like, I'm just tired of it all. But anyway, so back to the facilities, which I really didn't have much else to say other than like what they measured us on. So going to groups, eating properly, hygiene, and sleeping. Also just following all of the rules that they had. There were different rules about different times a day. Like, each facility is a little different though, so I can't really say for every facility what the rules were. I don't really remember, but they all had their own like rules and stuff. So just being conscious of other people and like respecting others as well. So yeah, I think overall though, when it comes to these facilities and mental health, I definitely think there needs to be reform, which I could maybe go more into that in another video, but I'm reaching my 18-minute mark, so I want to wrap this up before 20 minutes. But yeah, I think in terms of reform, I think there needs to be more education on psych tech people, so like the people who are just watching the patients all day. I don't know if these individuals have to go through extensive training or not, but from what I've seen, not all of them seem to know how to work with patients that are having mental health issues. I also think with reform, there needs to be more boundaries in place between patients and staff at hospitals, because it seems like these men specifically are getting away with talking and making comments at women patients. Another example outside of the sexual harassment that I talked about in my last video, there was this man, he was a psych tech, he was a white man, and he was really nice. So I'm not saying he's a bad person or anything, but I remember one time I had to go into my therapy / psychiatrist meeting, and they were asking me like why, basically I think I had like a look on my face, like I was kind of just like over it type look, and she was like, well, what's wrong, da da da. And I was just saying how like I feel ugly in the facility. I don't feel like myself because I couldn't get cute, like I didn't have anything to do my hair with. Like, this was in Kings Mountain, and so they were just like, oh, you're not ugly, da da da. And I think he overheard the conversation because he was kind of like outside the door. The door was open, I'm pretty sure. And that's another thing. I feel like they should have had more privacy between like when we had our therapy visits and psychiatry visits, because the psych techs didn't need to know all that information. But then in the next group that we had, it was me and some other girls, because there really weren't that many men when I was in Kings Mountain. Like, there was a guy that I told y'all about, the Indian man, who was telling me on my birthday, like, how, like, it's sad that, like, I want to hurt myself stuff. But anyway, it was an Indian man and maybe, like, one or two other guys, I think. But the psych tech, though, he starts to group off by saying, basically, like, none of you women are ugly. Like, it just makes me so upset if I hear anyone saying they're ugly. Like, you're all very, like, attractive young ladies or something. And I'm just like, I mean, I understand he had a good intent behind it, but it was just the way he said it was like, I don't want to think that my, essentially psych techs are somewhat like caregivers. I don't want to think that my caregiver is looking at me in that way. Like, I don't want to feel like you're attracted to me, because that just makes me wonder, like, because those people, like, that were working in the hospital, they could walk into your room while you're naked and you wouldn't even, like, have known, because there's, like, no locks on the doors or anything like that, which I'm not saying you should be able to lock your door, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be as many boundaries with the staff and patients as I would like. So yeah, and I also just don't think that there's much common sense among even the doctors in the mental hospital. I think it's because they're all, like, trained to do a script somewhat. Like, if, oh my God, I cannot tell you the amount of times I got the question, what did you eat today? Or how much did you eat today? Or how many hours did you sleep last night? Or did you go to group? Like, it's just, like, the same questions over and over again. And I understand that's part of their job and that's what they're using to, like, measure your progress. But I think it would be better to just generally ask, like, how are you feeling today? Or generally ask, like, what would you like to see be done in group? Like, now I think when I was in the hospital, they, in South Carolina, the last hospital I was in, they did start asking us, like, the people that had been there long, like me, because being in a behavioral hospital over a week is considered long, I think. So they did start asking us, like, what do we want to see? Like, what do we want to talk about? So I just wish they did that more. Also, the last hospital I was in was the only hospital that made me do a wellness recovery plan, which I can share more of what's in my wellness recovery plan in a different video. Maybe I'll do that in my next video, because that'll help explain, like, my triggers and stuff. But a wellness recovery plan is basically just an outline of all the different things that will help keep you well, basically. So I think had Davidson made me do that, I would never have went back to another facility. Like, if I had a plan for how I would go about, like, keeping myself well and not wanting to hurt myself or wanting to hurt other people, like a plan to take medicine, a plan to be in therapy, like a plan to work out, a plan to eat healthy. Like, if I had actually written that out and, like, went over it with the therapist like I did in the last hospital, I don't think I would have went back to the hospital, because I would have felt prepared. And I'm the type of person that has to feel secure in my decisions to be happy about them. So when I left the hospital, I didn't really feel secure at all. I literally felt like a zombie, because they started me on new medication. So it wasn't, I don't know. So I just ended up going right back to the hospital, like maybe 2 weeks after, in July. So I just think they need more structure in each of these facilities, because of those 3 facilities, none of them were the same. And I'm not saying they need to be exactly the same, but I think if your main goal is to help people who are dealing with similar issues, then you should have protocol that is made to treat these same issues, like, across the board. So that's my, like, I guess 2 cents on these facilities. Like I said, if you guys have questions and want me to go more in depth about how I feel about facilities, and honestly, do I even think facilities are necessary for people who are experiencing suicidal crisis or bipolar manic episodes, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I think being away from your phone and being away from people that may be causing your issues to be worse, like, I will say, being in the hospital for that month and not having access to my ex social media, because I was tweeting like crazy, like I said, Even being away from my friends and family, I think was good because I only could talk to my parents, and I did talk to my best friend Brooke on the phone. But other than that, I think just removing yourself from like everything that's going on and just being able to mentally like recharge, I think that's a good thing, especially like in our country and our state, and like how there's always something in the social media. And then in 2022, like we were still, you know, everybody was on like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. So I don't know, it was just very like hard to be a young Black woman. I mean, it's still hard, but I'm just saying, like, to be going through the mental issues I was going through and to try to like get through it by myself. Like, I do think getting professional help is always better than not getting professional help. However, I don't know if the current structure of these hospitals are effective. Not saying we need to get rid of them completely. Like, I'm not saying get rid of them completely. Like, if we're talking about prisons, I would say get rid of them completely. But we're just talking about mental health facilities, so I think they can be reformed. I don't think prisons can be reformed. But anyway, and that's another thing. I hate feeling like in some of these places, I did feel like a prisoner. Like, I didn't feel like I really had any rights to anything. And I didn't feel like my voice was heard in some of these facilities. And it's not just a specific facility, it's more of just like different points in the facility. Like, when I first got to the last facility I was in, I was literally like not conscious of what was going on around me. So when I started feeling conscious of what was going on around me, I felt like, well, why am I even here? You know, like, y'all aren't listening to my concerns and all this. When part of it was they were listening, but they had to do what they were paid to do. And that's another thing. As a patient who's in a mental crisis, you're not going to understand everything that's happening, and you're not going to be able to really express yourself effectively. Like, when I was in the last mental hospital, I wasn't able to really form like cohesive sentences until the second week of me being there. And that's because my psychosis had just took me to like another level of like incompetence, I guess. I don't like that word, incompetence. It wasn't incompetence, but I was just not conscious of like myself. It was literally like an out of body experience. So I just think that every person is different, and this is all my experience. So just to like disclaimer again, you know, everything that I'm saying is just what I experienced and how I felt in those moments. And I definitely think other people who are comfortable should share their experience. And I'm so happy. I just want to shout out some people. I'm not gonna say anyone's names, but I'm shout out people in general who have been watching my page, especially Maniac Mondays, because even though I want this to be a fun channel, I do want one of the major focuses to be mental health. So I'm so happy that people are reading and watching my story and like they're able to relate. Well, I'm not happy that you're able to relate because I don't want to wish what I've been through on anyone, but I'm happy that you're able to like find comfort, I guess, in listening to me, and hopefully one day you'll be able to share your own story if you haven't. So that's really one of my goals for my channel as well, is for people to be comfortable sharing their story. And it doesn't have to be on social media. I just chose to use social media because I want to reach as many people as possible. So that's all for this video. Thank you for tuning in to Maniac Monday. I'm gonna be posting this probably today. Today is Sunday. I'll probably post this today because I have to work tomorrow, which I'm not working at Miracle Ear anymore. But I am working at Topgolf tomorrow. I have a later shift, but I want to do like Uber Eats in the morning. So yeah. So I want to go ahead and post this, or I'll just save it and post it tomorrow morning. Sometimes YouTube takes forever to upload though. Like, once I get it from CapCut to YouTube, it takes like at least an hour. Especially with this being 30 minutes, it's going to take at least 2 hours probably. So I'll probably wake up in the morning and post it so that it will be uploaded on Monday and not Sunday. But thank you guys so much. I love you guys so much. Like, comment, subscribe, share, heart.